Imagine waking up tomorrow morning. You walk to the bathroom mirror, and overnight, every hair on your body is gone. No eyebrows, no arm hair, no chest hair, nothing. At first, it sounds like a nightmare. Until you step outside. The sun feels hotter. The wind feels colder. Every tiny scratch suddenly hurts. And you realize something strange. Fur isn't just decoration. It's survival. Welcome to Honestly Explained, where we take the questions that seem obvious and follow them somewhere completely unexpected. Today's question has been sitting on your skin your entire life. So here's the mystery. If fur protects almost every land mammal on Earth, why do humans get rid of it? Lions have it. Bears have it. Wolves have it. Even monkeys, our closest relatives, are still covered in thick body hair. So why are we the odd ones out? Did our ancestors simply wake up one day bald? Not even close. The answer took over 1,000,000 years, and it completely changed the future of our species. But before we get there, let's clear up one common myth. Humans didn't actually become hairless. Look closely at your arm. Even if it doesn't seem obvious, thousands of tiny hairs are still there. In fact, scientists estimate the average human has around 5 million hair follicles across the body. That's surprisingly close to the number found on a chimpanzee. The difference isn't how much hair we have. It's what kind of hair. Chimpanzees grow thick, dark, insulating fur. Most humans grow short, fine hairs that barely trap any heat. So the real question isn't, why did humans lose their hair? It's, why did our fur become so tiny? And that mystery begins in one of the hottest places on Earth. Around 2 to 3 million years ago, much of Eastern Africa was changing. Dense forests slowly gave way to open grasslands. Trees became fewer. Shade became harder to find. And the African sun became relentless. Imagine walking across an endless plain with no hat, no sunglasses, no air conditioning, and no cold drink waiting at the end. Now imagine doing that every single day. Our ancestors had no choice. Food was scattered across huge distances. Water holes dried up. Animals migrated. If humans wanted to survive, they had to keep moving. Here's something I'm genuinely curious about. If you had to walk 20 kilometers every day under the African sun, with no shoes and no shade, do you think you'd last a week? I honestly have no idea what my own answer is. Drop yours in the comments, because I think this one splits people completely. Now here's where things become fascinating. Most predators hunt by exploding into action. A lion sprints. A cheetah accelerates. A leopard ambushes. But humans evolved something completely different. Instead of being the fastest, we became the ones who never stopped. Scientists call this persistence hunting, rather than chasing an animal for seconds. Ancient humans chased it for hours. Imagine being an antelope. You escape. You think you've won. 10 minutes later, the humans are still behind you. You run again. Half an hour passes. They're still coming. An hour later, still there. Not sprinting, not rushing, just walking. Step after step, mile after mile. It must have felt like the world's slowest horror movie. The reason this strategy worked comes down to one incredible ability. Sweat. Humans are sweating machines. We have between 2 and 4 million sweat glands spread across our skin. When sweat evaporates, it carries heat away from the body like a natural cooling system. Most furry mammals can't do that very well. Dogs pant. Lions rest in the shade. Wolves slow down. But humans? We keep walking. We keep sweating. And as long as we have water, we keep cooling ourselves. Evolution basically turned humans into walking air conditioning units. Highly inefficient looking, slightly embarrassing at the beach, but remarkably effective in the African midday sun. Now imagine trying to do that while wearing a thick fur coat. Every drop of sweat would get trapped beneath the hair. Cooling would become much less effective. Your own insulation would start working against you. It's a bit like jogging through summer while wearing a heavy winter jacket. You can do it, just not for very long. Little by little, generation after generation, individuals with slightly thinner fur could cool down a little faster. Those tiny advantages mattered. They could hunt longer, travel farther, find more food, raise more children. Over thousands of generations, Natural selection quietly rewarded better cooling instead of thicker insulation. But losing fur created a brand new problem, a serious one. Without thick body hair protecting their skin, our ancestors were suddenly exposed to something far more dangerous than heat, the African sun itself. And solving that problem would lead to one of the most important evolutionary changes in human history. If losing fur helped ancient humans stay cool, why didn't every animal do the same? After all, lions lived under the same African sun. So did zebras, elephants, hyenas. Even antelopes spent their entire lives baking under temperatures that could reach well above 40 degrees Celsius. Yet somehow, they all kept their fur. Humans didn't. So what made us different? The answer is surprisingly simple. Most animals don't spend the hottest part of the day moving. They avoid it. Lions hunt after sunset. Leopards prefer dawn and dusk. Even cheetahs often rest once the afternoon heat becomes unbearable. The sun wasn't their workplace. It was something to survive until evening. Ancient humans did the exact opposite. They walked when other predators were hiding. Picture the African savanna at noon. The air shimmers. The ground feels hot enough to burn your feet. Almost every large predator has disappeared into the shade. But one strange ape keeps walking, hour after hour. No claws, no fangs, no incredible speed, just patience. That may not sound impressive today, but back then it was almost unfair. Our ancestors weren't trying to outrun animals. They were waiting for them to overheat. Eventually, an exhausted antelope would slow down. Its breathing became heavier, its muscles filled with heat. Meanwhile, the humans chasing it were still cooling themselves with sweat. Not because they were stronger, because they had a better cooling system. It's honestly one of evolution's strangest victories. Imagine winning a race, simply because your opponent got tired first. But here's the part nobody thinks about. Losing fur solved the heat problem. It immediately created a far more dangerous one. Of course, there was a price. Without thick fur, ancient humans became vulnerable in ways other animals weren't. The daytime sun became dangerous. Not just uncomfortable, dangerous. Ultraviolet radiation damages skin cells. It destroys DNA. Spend enough time under intense sunlight without protection, and your body begins paying the price. Natural selection had solved one problem, only to create another. Fortunately, evolution already had another trick waiting: skin color. The earliest humans almost certainly developed much darker skin than many people imagine today. Dark skin contains more melanin, a natural pigment that acts like millions of microscopic umbrellas. It absorbs harmful ultraviolet radiation before it can damage deeper layers of skin. In other words, as fur slowly disappeared, melanin quietly took over part of its job. Different protection. Same goal. Stay alive long enough to have children. That's really what evolution cares about. Not beauty, not comfort, just survival. Modern sunscreen can wear off after a few hours. Melanin works every second of every day. No bottle required. No reapplying every 2 hours at the beach. No awkward white streaks down your nose. Pretty clever design, honestly. But even darker skin couldn't solve every problem. Cold nights still existed. Rain still happened. Strong winds could strip away body heat frighteningly fast. Remember, ancient humans hadn't invented houses, or blankets, or thick jackets. If the weather changed suddenly, you couldn't simply go inside. You were outside, which meant our ancestors needed another solution. Not one built by evolution, one built by intelligence. At some point, humans began using animal hides. At first, they probably weren't clothing in a modern sense. More like simple coverings thrown over the shoulders. Enough to trap warmth during cold evenings. Enough to survive another night. That's one of the strangest twists in human history. For millions of years, nature made our fur smaller. Then humans started borrowing someone else's. Imagine explaining that to another animal. We lost our own coat, so now we wear yours. It sounds ridiculous, yet that's exactly what happened. And unlike fur, you could remove it whenever the day became hot. Put it back on when temperatures dropped. Evolution had never created an animal with adjustable insulation before. Humans invented it. That tiny idea changed everything. Suddenly, people weren't limited by their own biology anymore. They could walk into colder valleys, higher mountains, eventually, frozen landscapes no tropical ape should have survived. All because someone looked at an animal's skin and thought, this could work. Sometimes history doesn't change because of a great battle. Sometimes it changes because one curious human tried something everyone else ignored. And our ancestors were about to make another discovery that would completely transform the human body once again. Fire. Fire changed everything. Before fire, night belonged to predators. After fire, it slowly started belonging to humans. Imagine sitting beside a campfire nearly 1 million years ago. The sun has disappeared. The temperature is dropping. Somewhere beyond the orange glow, you hear something moving through the grass. Maybe it's a hyena, maybe a leopard, maybe just the wind. You don't know. But for the first time in human history, you aren't completely defenseless. That little circle of flames isn't just producing warmth. It's producing confidence. Scientists believe humans began controlling fire at least 1 million years ago, possibly earlier, although exactly when is still debated. What isn't debated is how dramatically it changed our lives. A campfire did more than keep people warm. It scared away many predators. It extended the day. It allowed food to be cooked. And, perhaps most importantly, it reduced our dependence on thick body fur. Think about it. If every night ends beside a warm fire, you no longer need to carry your winter coat everywhere on your skin. Nature had found one solution. Humans invented a better one. That's something our species keeps doing throughout history. Instead of evolving bigger claws, we make spears. Instead of evolving thicker fur, we build fires. Instead of evolving stronger teeth, we invent cooking. Little by little, our brains began replacing our biology, which, if you think about it, is either the most impressive thing any species has ever done, or a very long way of explaining why you still can't survive a weekend without your phone charger. Now, losing fur didn't happen all at once. There wasn't one unlucky human who woke up bald one morning while everyone else looked like orangutans. Evolution doesn't work like that. It's painfully slow, almost boringly slow. Imagine watching a mountain grow, one grain of sand at a time. That's evolution. Every generation looked almost identical to the one before it. Parents never noticed. Children never noticed. Even grandparents wouldn't have noticed. But after hundreds of thousands of years, the difference became enormous. That's one of the strangest things about time. Small changes are invisible, until suddenly, they're everywhere. Researchers studying human genetics have found clues suggesting that body lice evolved from head lice roughly 170,000 years ago. That may sound like an odd thing to study, but it's actually an incredible historical clue. Body lice survive mainly in clothing. Without clothing, they can't live. So if body lice appeared around that time, humans were probably wearing clothes regularly by then. Imagine discovering ancient fashion by studying tiny parasites. History is weird sometimes, but here's where another mystery appears. If humans lost most of their fur, why don't we lose the hair on our heads? Wouldn't bald heads cool even better? At first, that seems logical, until you stand outside under the African sun. Place your hand on dark pavement during summer. Now imagine that heat landing directly on your skull for hours every day. Not ideal. Hair on top of the head acts like a natural umbrella. It blocks part of the sun's radiation while still allowing air to circulate. Some studies even suggest tightly curled hair provides even better protection against direct sunlight by creating an insulating layer of air above the scalp. In other words, the hair that remained wasn't random. It was useful. Eyebrows stayed too, not because they look expressive, although they certainly help. Their original job was much less glamorous. Sweat. When you're running beneath the scorching sun, sweat pours down your forehead. Without eyebrows, much of it would drip straight into your eyes. Tiny hairs redirect that moisture toward the sides of the face. Simple, but incredibly effective. Even your eyelashes have a purpose. They help keep dust, sand, tiny insects and other particles away from the eyes. Evolution isn't interested in appearances. It keeps whatever still solves a problem. Everything else slowly disappears. Now imagine explaining modern hairstyles to an ancient human. So, you spend an hour every morning changing the shape of the hair, evolution carefully protected? They'd probably be very confused. Then again, they'd probably be even more confused by shampoo, or hair gel, or the concept of a blow dryer. But perhaps the biggest surprise is this. Losing fur wasn't just about surviving. It may have completely changed the way humans interacted with each other. And that story is even stranger than biology. So far, losing fur sounds like one of evolution's greatest success stories. Humans stayed cooler. They traveled farther. They hunted longer. Eventually, they spread across nearly every corner of Earth. But evolution almost never gives without taking something away. The moment our ancestors lost their natural coat, they also lost one of nature's simplest forms of protection. Suddenly, mosquitoes became a bigger problem. Sharp branches scratched exposed skin. Cold rain became miserable. Even sleeping on rough ground hurt more than it once had. For the first time, humans had to start changing the world, instead of simply adapting to it. And that's a fascinating difference. Most animals adapt their bodies. Humans adapt their environment. When it became cold, we didn't evolve thicker fur again. We built shelters. When predators became dangerous, we didn't evolve longer claws. We made sharper spears. When darkness arrived, we didn't evolve better night vision. We carried fire with us. Little by little, our intelligence replaced millions of years of biological evolution. That's one reason humans eventually lived in deserts, rainforests, frozen tundra, and high mountains. No other primate has managed anything close to that. Not because we're physically stronger, because we're remarkably good at solving problems. In many ways, civilization became our new coat. Now here's a surprisingly strange idea. Some anthropologists believe losing body fur may have changed human relationships too. Think about it. When facial expressions are easier to see, communication becomes easier. When skin is visible, tiny changes in emotion become more obvious. A blush, goosebumps, a smile, fear, pain, embarrassment. None of these are hidden beneath thick fur. Some researchers suggest this may have strengthened social bonding inside early human groups. After all, humans survive by cooperating. Understanding each other's emotions became one of our greatest advantages. Hair itself even took on entirely new roles. Instead of simply keeping us warm, it became part of identity, status, age, sometimes even spirituality. Thousands of years later, ancient Egyptians shaved their heads for cleanliness. Roman men carefully groomed their beards depending on fashion. Warriors across different cultures styled their hair to intimidate enemies. Something evolution created for survival. Humans transformed into culture. Only our species would do something like that. But here's the biggest misconception of all. People often imagine evolution as a ladder, as if becoming less furry somehow made humans better. That's not how evolution works. Chimpanzees aren't unfinished humans. Bears aren't outdated. Lions didn't evolve incorrectly. Every species is perfectly shaped for its own environment. Humans simply followed a different path, one that favored brains over bodies, sweat over fur, tools over claws, fire over insulation, and curiosity over instinct. In many ways, the story of losing fur isn't really about hair at all. It's about the moment humans stopped relying entirely on evolution and slowly began engineering their own survival. That journey eventually led to clothing, cities, medicine, spacecraft, and the phone or computer you're probably watching this on right now. All because millions of years ago, a slightly less furry ape could stay cooler under the African sun. So the next time you stand in front of that bathroom mirror and notice those tiny hairs on your arm, or complain about shaving, or wish winter wasn't quite so cold, remember what you're actually looking at. Not a design flaw, not an accident. Every tiny hair that disappeared over millions of years helped build one of the most adaptable species this planet has ever seen. Evolution never set out to build civilization. It was simply trying to help one exhausted ape survive another scorching afternoon. Everything else was the unexpected consequence. And honestly, that's what makes human history so incredible. If losing fur could accidentally set off a chain of events that led to cities, medicine, and space travel, what other tiny biological accidents shaped the world we're living in today? Because the deeper you dig into human history, the stranger it becomes.